Everyone has been talking about Anduin's trauma and him losing his faith in the light, which caused a massive transformation we had all seen, but by all the evidence we had just gotten from the alpha, it seems like he is the one that abandoned the light and not the other way around. First of all, we had Anduin actually hiding from Turalyon. If he was really having trouble in his faith, wouldn't he consult with him first? Now, in the War Within Alpha, not only had we datamined his sword without the light, just like it was in the artwork, but we got a whole conversation of Anduin talking about how there are things we don't know about Azeroth and the cosmological forces and how his relationship with the light is different. So what does Anduin know that we don't? As with learning about what the light crystal really is and the light undead, it really seems like things are changing rapidly. Actually playing WoW on your phone is possible with Awesome, this video sponsor. You can not only check in on your characters, but you can do things like pet battles and even fully play the game. Awesome allows you to control the computer through your phone completely free, available for Windows, iOS, and Android. It's super easy to use. Check out my link in the description, download the PC and the phone app, and just simply connect it. The free version is great and you can control the desktop, transfer files and such, but the real deal is the game version with custom keyboards for various games other than just WoW, and you can enjoy AFK gaming at any time, anywhere with sound. Make sure to use my code Doron to get 7 days completely free only for the first 200 people. They also got a smart lock to turn off your PC at any time, as well as hot sales with up to 40% off on pro and game versions. Check out Awesome. So, ever since the War Within cinematic, everyone was talking about how Anduin has changed, how he has been dealing with PTSD, trauma, and that forced this sudden change in appearance and the mental breakdown and all the bad things he did with the jailer and the Shadowlands. While there's definitely some truth to this, with the recent alpha information, it really seems like there is so much more behind this, and it is a lot more complex than just jailer bad. He didn't lose the light because he no longer trusts in himself and is traumatized, but there seems to be something much more sinister going on behind the scenes. For some reason, Anduin got this reputation of being a crybaby, despite technically being one of the toughest characters in the game. I mean, keep in mind, trauma is not something new to Anduin. That is essentially his life in short. Like in summary, he lost his mother when he was a kid, his father was kidnapped when he was really young, and he was put on the throne at like age of 5. He was missing in Pandaria, got nearly killed by Garrosh. He lost his father in a giant demonic invasion of the entire planet. Then while he was still being a teenager, he had to become a king and rule a giant faction, and almost immediately his hand was forced to now lead the biggest faction war ever, where he had to do quite a few terrible things. Then as that calmed down, he was abducted by the goofball jailer, who was then breaking his mind with all his force and turned him into a new version of Arthas. So when you really think about it, he has really been through a lot, and why would this jailer thing get him to lose the light and just completely break his character? Well, that is because he hasn't lost the light, but he is the one that actually ditched it. With all the recent light lore, I mean, the notion we had in the past that the light is this inner strength where you just gotta believe really hard and then it saves the world is such an outdated concept, and frankly really beyond naive when you really examine all the hints that we had gotten. Anduin has had a gift for the light since a really young age. He has actually managed to resurrect people on multiple occasions, and while I know this happens every 5 seconds essentially in the game, keep in mind in the lore this is a really rare occurrence. He was then tutored by Wellen, one of the most ancient characters we have in the game and an actual expert on the light. So while Anduin has gone through a lot of trauma, the light was always there for him, and when he lost this faith, this inner peace, this belief, that is what ultimately broke him, and that is how we got the broken Anduin in the War Within cinematic. And all of this is actually getting half confirmed with the alpha hints we had gotten. It's not just random speculation. I know no one really takes the jailer and the entire storyline seriously, but his role was actually crucial in this. Now, not to discount Arthas' Death Knight mind control thing and the fact that he had to attack the random Kyrians, but what this transformation actually put him through, how it opened his eyes and allowed him to see the universe for what it really is. The jailer is technically on the same cosmological level, at least knowledge-wise, as the Titans or Sargeras or the Naru or the Void Lords, and he has a really rare and unique perspective on what is really going on behind the scenes. He knows everything about the first ones, what is really going on, how predatory the 6 cosmological forces are, the ancient wars. On the other hand, we, the life light beings are essentially akin to ants when it comes to knowing how the universe really works. I mean, just look at how hilarious the human Church of Light actually is. It's like literally not connected in any way to the Army of the Light or the Naru ships or the Naru or the way that Draenei see the light, and it's such a tiny little view that is almost downright delusional. We occasionally get glimpses of what the light is doing and what it is capable of. We hear about Yrel taking over alternate Draenor with the Light Army and enslaving the people. We see the invasion in Revendreth in Shadowlands with our own eyes. We see Zera trying to force convert Illidan. So you can imagine when Anduin was used as an agent of Zowal, he got the front row seat to the ride that is called the Cosmological truth. The light was holding his mind from being broken in the Shadowlands, and the jailer understood that in order to break his mind, he would have to first show him what the light truly is, and that is what ultimately got him to falter. I mean, think about it. When Anduin was freed, he didn't go and chill out or go to therapy or whatnot. He decided to abandon his kingdom. He decided to travel the cosmos and the planes, and he decided to go to the Maw to talk with none other than Sylvanas. He didn't talk with his personal 25k years of knowledge Velen or Turalyon that is now leading the alliance in his stead. No, he decided to talk with Sylvanas, the only other known character in the universe that saw the exact same thing with her own eyes as he has seen, and he knows everyone else would think he was just crazy if he really told them everything. So that now brings us to the War Within, and how previously this was a theory, I mean a pretty legit theory, but of course a speculation, but now we're getting quite a bit of evidence from the game itself. Anduin has been missing for years, and in 10.2.5 we got the first ever actual sighting from Gan Greymane, and he decided to hide this fact from Turalyon. I mean, just examine this. Turalyon is like the light incarnate. I mean, he's literally the leader of the Light Army, the most militant side of the light, and he's leading the alliance while Anduin is gone. If Anduin was really having like this soul-searching moment, like trouble with his fate after all that he was put through, I mean, don't you think he would go immediately to Turalyon, check out how his kingdom is doing, consult with a character that he has thousands of years of experience with the light, and see how to go forward, how he can get the light back? No, he seems to be wary of this guy. He seems to be hiding, and interestingly though, we had datamined so many characters in the alpha so far, but not one thing about Turalyon. We got Jaina, Troll, Illyria, all the big guys in the new Dalaran scenario that starts the expansion, so you would think the actual king of the alliance would be present like how Varian was on the Broken Shore, but of course that could just be the fact that it is really early alpha. He may be showing up soon. However, from the actual evidence, first of all, you might have already noticed this in the official War Within artwork that Anduin's sword no longer has the light inside it. He's wielding Kingsmorn, which is the Mournblade version of his father's sword. While his sword has light in the alpha, this seems to just be a placeholder of Charlemagne. The sword we had datamined in the game is actually empty. The sword is also empty in the War Within cinematic if you examine it. However, it doesn't seem like he's searching for a way to empower this sword in this expansion, and that leads us to the biggest evidence that we have, and that is of course an actual conversation from Anduin. Huge spoilers here of course about Magni, but as you might know, Magni is the voice of Azeroth. He has a unique connection, and from the things we had datamined, a lot of things happen, but he loses that crystal form, he returns back to his original dwarf form, and he reunites with his family. However, now we got a conversation between the sort of disillusioned Magni as well as Anduin that has long been disillusioned. Anduin asks how he's feeling, and Magni says that he's kinda tired of this speaker nonsense, and it was an honor until it wasn't, and how Azeroth dragged him and his family to the ends of the earth, endangered everyone, and he doesn't even know what is even going on. Then Magni says that Anduin is in the same boat, but it seems like the light is a fairer master than Azeroth, and he doubts that it truly left him. Like, he is positive that Anduin will soon find it. However, Anduin here is sort of just being polite, not really opening up on what is really going on. He says he could say the same thing about him and Azeroth, and that it's not really about him, and how there is much more that we don't know about. Here, he could be referring to Azeroth being a potentially fairer master than the light, or not abandoning Magni as Magni believes. I mean, the context is kinda unclear at the moment. Then Magni says he should just figure himself out, rest, enjoy the break from the stress of being a king and a savior of the world. However, to that, Anduin responds, I can see what you mean, but my relationship with the light is not like yours to Azeroth. Here, Anduin is of course not spilling the beans outright. I mean, that would kind of spoil the entire storyline. It is continuing to be mysterious, but it definitely plays in with the previous hints. As I said, we don't know the full context yet, as it seems like Magni loses the speaker role and returns to regular dwarf form, which is similar to Anduin's transformation, but it appears like this happens naturally. However, the reason he probably says the relationship is different is because he is the one that abandoned his master. Remember how pissed off Anduin gets in the cinematic when Troll talks to him about the light, and Anduin, first of all, annoyed that people see him just for his light powers, and then he says, I don't have the light anymore, not after what I had seen, what I had done. I think he realized that the light might not be the only way to go forward, and it doesn't particularly care about Azeroth, but instead it only uses pawns of Azeroth to further its own interests. This perfectly plays in with other things happening at the War Within. I mean, you might have heard the information that the crystal in Halfall is called Beledar, which is almost certainly some type of a Naru ship. I mean, remember, all Naru ships we could see have been named Genedar, Zenedar, Vindicar, definitely similar to Beledar, so this could have literally been a light invasion of Azeroth that we never knew about. There's going to be a huge storyline between Anduin and the Arati humans, and we already have conversations of him first learning about how people know about the Arati on the isolated island and him making contact with them. Additionally, we can datamined a bunch of these light undead and we still don't have context for them. It could be a punishment for maybe disobeying the light with the Arati, it could be the more fanatical version of the Arati paladins, or it could of course all be related to Kalia Manatil. Remember, Kalia is the only light undead we had actually seen. Until BFA, we didn't even know light could dabble in necromancy, and it was a Naru that personally helped resurrect Kalia. Why is the light making undead? I mean, that doesn't really seem like something a benevolent force would be doing. All this is of course very early information. I mean, just seeds at this point in time. As the alpha progresses to Holofall, we will actually learn more. However, light lore is definitely going to be a heavy theme in this expansion, and it is almost certain we will soon see the true face of the light and what it truly is as we are setting everything up for midnight. Thank you for watching. Check out my video on the pre-patch and us fighting the Lich King by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on ancient Greek colonies in Spain by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!